questions after the session, or if there is any technical problem, you can always communicate. So, giving you all a warm welcome on a good hot afternoon. আমি বুঝতে পারছি you people are going through a very bad phase. You are going through, I think, number of classes in a very short period of time. Please bear the torture. For being a doctor, you have to endure much more tortures later on. So today we are going to discuss from the surgical point of view, I mean the different type of X-rays particularly we encounter in the surgical practice. Now, this presentation is actually not really made for all the undergrad students. There are few issues which are more relevant for the postgrad people, but we will skip over a few, we will discuss most things. Okay, so when we discuss things, one second. Cursor is moving. Please bear with me. Before you get into actual business of reading an X-ray or whatever, please remember two things in your life. I mean for life I am talking, that don't go for the most difficult diagnosis, whatever which comes in X-rays, because common things happen commonly. You have to think of the common things first, and whenever you get an X-ray, please think of the patient first. Patient has got this thing, patient has got that thing, I am seeing this lipolith here, ficcolith here, all these things. Okay, those things are definitely important, but the most important thing is the patient. Think of the patient, think of his or her conditions, and accordingly treat the patient first. Now, what X-rays we encounter? Now, we remember that the common X-rays in surgical practice we get mostly are chest X-rays and abdominal X-rays. So chest X-rays, commonly the chest X-rays are the PA views. I mean whatever X-ray we get in chest X-ray, all are PA views. AP views are done very rarely, until and unless the patient is moribund and bedridden. And in AP view, how to understand what is an AP view X-ray in chest X-ray? You can see the cardiac shadow, which is much more larger because the rays are coming from front. So ultimately the projection of the rays, I mean the opacity behind on the plate is much more wider and larger. So if you get a hugely large heart on X-ray, please check whether it's a PA or AP view. An abdomen. It's a AP or PA view. An abdominal X-rays, most X-rays, whatever X-ray you get on abdomen, mostly are AP films, are the anterior-posterior films, not the posterior-anterior ones. Regarding posture of the patient, a patient can be in various stages of, presentation. A patient can be supine, lying down. A patient can be erect or sitting, or patient can be lying on sides. And X-rays, in your times we are getting good quality X-rays in the hospitals, I mean the digital X-rays. In our times we used to get mostly overexposed X-rays. Everything is black or everything is white, something like that. So also the X-ray penetration can be under-penetrated or overexposed plates, which you encounter mostly in emergencies. Now, in X-ray what we see? We see different grades of black and white actually. So what we see, the gas is black, fat grey, dark grey, soft tissue fluids etc. light grey, and bones and calcifications, if at all are there, they are white. I mean in orthopedics, of course the bones are always white. And metal, if patient has got any metal implants or anything like a pacemaker or whatever, those come as intense white. Posture, I told, in a supine posture. Now you think you are taking a plate, a patient lying supine, your machine is on top of the patient and your plate is behind the patient. So whatever X-rays you take, if there is any sort of fluid within the patient's any of the body cavity, say the thoracic cavity or the abdominal cavity, you won't get the fluid level because fluids tend to go down. In a supine posture, the total, vertical height of the body is not much, so you cannot get a proper fluid level in a supine patient. I will tell you why in a different X-ray later on. But in X-ray, when you are taking an erect X-ray, which we commonly do, we see the air goes up, the fluid goes down, the kidneys drop. Of course, the transverse colon also sags down and the small bowels also sags down. In erect patient, also in females, the breasts also drop. When you do a supine X-ray in a female, the breasts lie more lateral. And lower abdomen bulges in erect posture increases because everything sags down, the lower abdomen bulges in a erect posture X-ray. And the diaphragm also goes down. So the lung base, the angles, at the lateral angles or the angles near the heart, they are much more clear. On X-rays, you see there will be some markers there. Anywhere, in any part of the, on any angle of the plate. Usually the R is right. So when you get a plate, if R is marked, always keep that thing on the right for your interpretation. And if you are taking a decubitus film on a particular posture, don't just put the patient in that posture and take a film. You have to wait for a few minutes and then take the film, intentionally overexpose the film to get a better clarity between the, as you do not get proper fluid levels over there, between the gas and fluid, if any is there. Now this is the picture I am showing you. It's a left lateral decubitus film. You can see this is the heart, this is the liver, this is the cardiac apex, and you can see this is the diaphragm, and you can see this black thing, it is free air within the peritoneal cavity. So it is a left lateral decubitus film in a patient who had free air in the peritoneal cavity, free gas in the peritoneal cavity. You can ask me why, sir, why this X-ray has been taken in this way? Patient can be taken in the erect posture. Yes, could have taken. Now you think of a patient has come to you after suffering for 3 to 4 days, cannot even stand. Patient is extremely moribund, weak, toxic. So in those patients, you can actually, if you suspect a hollow viscera perforation, you can always put the patient on a left lateral decubitus film, wait for a few minutes, and you see whether you can get some free air between the rib cage and the liver, and between the diaphragm as well. In this triangle particularly, you can get a free air. That is an example of decubitus film. Just for the sake of example, I am showing it here. Now, contrast X-rays are different X-rays from X-rays. There are some things used in the X-rays to study and evaluate organs which are used to highlight something. I'll highlight some organ or something. That is a contrast X-ray. Other than that, X-rays we commonly encounter the plain X-rays. So let's start with the plain X-rays first. First, we have to determine the size. Now, if you get an abdominal X-ray on the left and you can see the chest X-ray on the right. On a chest X-ray, it has been told to you since you are, I think, first professional MBBS, that apex on the left, the cardiac shadow is here. It's a chest X-ray PA view. Had it been an AP view, the cardiac shadow would have been wider. Huge cardiac shadow. You could have thought you are dealing with a patient of cardiomegaly. Believe me, in surgery you don't deal with cardiomegalies. Anyway, so apex on the left. Of course, the clavicle and upper part, you can make out which part is up and down. So left and right you can make out, and you can see the ribs out here as well. And this is the aorta. Here you can see small convexity over here, that's the aorta. But on a X-ray of abdomen, a bit difficult. Up and down is not really a big problem because pelvis is down, we know. But there are other things to determine. First thing, if you cannot get a cardiac apex visible over here, you have to look for the gas out here. That is upper part of the X-ray. In an abdominal X-ray, there should be some amount of gas, which is known as fundic gas. The fundic gas, of course, gastric fundus should be on the left side, and liver accordingly on the right side, which is the shadow, like soft shadow, grey shadow. These two linear things going down. You can see the margins even. These are the psoas muscles. The psoas muscles going down from above below. So, and you can see in a good quality X-ray, of course, the lower pole of kidney as well. So, Van Dyck gas has helped you to find which one is left. You know what is up and what is down, and accordingly you can identify some other structures as well. So this is a chest X-ray, a very commonly given X-ray in the exams. See, the right is mentioned over here. So the moment you get an X-ray, of course you arrange it. At times examiners give you the X-ray to put it on the view box. At times examiners put it in the view box themselves. If you are given an X-ray, the right should be on the right and the apex, it's vanished. There is something opaque thing on the left side. Now here you can see the costophrenic and cardiophrenic angles are more or less clear. There are some streaky opacities about the lungs, but these angles are more or less clear. Whereas on the left side, both costophrenic and cardiophrenic angles are obliterated, and you can see a crescent shaped border going up on the left. So what is it? It is nothing but a pleural effusion. The pleural effusion, of course, there will be opacity on any of the lung or both of the lungs, but the upper margin should always be crescent shaped opacity, which is a homogeneous opacity, loss of the costo and cardiophrenic angles, and it is a pleural effusion. This is another example. Then what is it? Is it also a pleural effusion? We don't know. You can see the opacity, but the opacity you can see, this is rib. This is not exactly opacity. The opacity is like this. So this is more or less horizontal. This is an artifact, probably a button. Don't think something is there inside the heart. So this is a horizontal opacity on the right. So what is it? This is another example. Horizontal opacity on the left. This is known as hemothorax. In surgery, we commonly encounter this after traumas. There is there is blood in the pleural cavity, gives you this homogeneous opacity pictures, but the upper border is always tends to straight or linear, unlike the menisci-shaped upper border in the case of pleural effusion. You can see a very much clear-cut picture. This is a straight border, that is a hemothorax or even hydrothorax if you think of a medical terms, or even you can say it's a pyothorax also. But in this X-ray you can see another peculiar feature is there. Here on the right you can see, of course this is right, you can see there are streaky opacities, the bronchial opacities over on the right side, but on the left side in this part it's absolutely black and rib, nothing else. Whereas something has crumpled upon on the medial part of the entire picture. On the right you can see again the black opacity, only gas and ribs. Something has crumpled up on the medial aspect. So what is it? I am giving you the history. It's a sudden onset respiratory distress after chest trauma. Very good. It's a case of very good, very good. It's a pneumothorax with hydrothorax
Collapse
or
of the
pyothorax. I mean, you say it's a pneumothorax with, it can be a hemothorax, can be a hydrothorax, can be even a pyothorax. You don't know what is it. Because see, when there is a hydrothorax, I mean, if you talk about medical terms again, we surgeons mostly deal with hemothorax, and if it is untreated, after a few days it can be a pyothorax. It all looks the same. Only patient symptoms will differ. Patient will become more toxic. But this is the collapsed lung or crumpled medially, and the black air is there. Black air is there only, and the ribs. So this is a case of pneumothorax with hemothorax. I have given you a history of trauma in this patient. So it's better to say it's a hemothorax with pneumothorax, not a hydrothorax. Okay. So the next one. Now look at this picture. You can also communicate with me. I'm listening. Don't worry. Okay. So in this picture, what are the peculiar things you are observing? Anybody please volunteer? There are rib fractures. I agree with you. Any specific type? See, মনে হচ্ছে তোমার ঠিকই মনে হচ্ছে, কিন্তু আমি তোমাকে আরেকটুখানি ভালো করে বোঝার চেষ্টা করি। তুমি দেখো, this is the fracture zone. Yes, this is the fracture zone. Yes. Now you look at this part. You can see a fracture zone here as well here. You can see a double fractures. Double
flail chest.
Come on, I will come into that. I mean, it's a double fracture. Say that. So, if you are asked what you can see in this kind of pictures, so if you are given a chest X-ray with rib fractures, please look for double fractures, because the examiner is going to ask you questions on flail chest or another variant called Stovin chest. So, rib fracture. Yes, sure. Hey, this is one fracture. I mean, in this rib. And this is another fracture zone. This is a different rib. Here, one here, another here. Okay. So there are multiple rib fractures, and in a few ribs you can see the multiple fractures in a single rib also. I mean, more than one. So that leads to a condition known as flail chest. I believe you know the pathology of flail chest. We are not going into the details. So this is a broken fragment attached only with pleura. So with respiration you can see paradoxical respiratory movements and in Stovin chest.
স্যার বলছি ডাবল ফ্র্যাকচার মানে কি একটা রিবে দুটো ফ্র্যাকচার বলছেন? ডাবল ফ্র্যাকচার
I am talking about in a case of flail chest, generally one single rib is getting fractured is very unlikely. Okay, one or two. You get multiple ribs are fractured. Multiple ribs are fractured. First thing, as I have seen in the last picture, you see, multiple ribs are fractured. 1, 2, 3. Here is another rib, At least 5 ribs are fractured in this plate, I can see. But in few ribs, at least in one rib, I can show you. This is a flail zone. This is one fracture. This is another fracture. So there are multiple ribs are fractured, and number of ribs are having 2 or more fractures. Here at least 2 fractures are there. Okay, am I clear? Hello?
Yes sir.
Okay. So to become something flail chest, you have to have multiple fracture on a single rib or in a number of ribs.
স্যার তার মানে সেগমেন্টটা কি ভেঙে বেরিয়ে যাচ্ছে?
No, ভেঙে বেরিয়ে কোথায় যাবে? See, this is 1 rib, 2 rib, 3 rib in this particular X-ray. Now you see, these ribs are broken from the bony attachments, but the ribs are not actually free. They are attached to the intercostal muscles. They are attached to the deeply they are attached to the pleuras as well. ভেঙে বেরিয়ে গেলেও তো বেরিয়ে যেতে পারবে না জিনিসটা শরীর থেকে। Now what happens when the patient is taking inspiration? On inspiration what happens? Bolo somebody.
Chest expands.
In inspiration first negative pressure appears. Okay, with the negative pressure appears, when the chest expands, the entire chest will first in negative pressure. Hello, শুনতে পাচ্ছো?
Yes sir.
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
নেগেটিভ প্রেসার হওয়া মানে পজিটিভ প্লুরাল প্রেসার তৈরি হচ্ছে। পজিটিভ প্লুরাল প্রেসার তৈরি হলে the entire lung is drawn in, but this thing is pulled out. And when you have positive pressure within the lungs, this thing is moved in. It sucks in. That is flail chest. It is paradoxical respiration. In normal respiration, you inspire, the entire chest wall or the ribs, they all will expand. In expiration, everything goes in. In paradoxical respiration, entire thing is opposite. The flail segment, this segment, in inspiration, it goes out. In expiration, it goes in. That is paradoxical respiration. So if you get paradoxical respiration in any part of the chest wall of any patient, you please suspect there are multiple fractures on single rib or multiple ribs. At least 2 fractures are there, which has made the ribs, the broken segment independent of the movement of the lung. Okay? So this is another X-ray which is given very commonly in the examination. Can somebody describe the X-ray to me?
There is definitely some gas under the right dome of diaphragm. Probably this is a case of hollow viscous perforation.
You have told it right, but I am telling you, you first describe what the X-ray is. Sir, this is a straight X-ray. This is a X-ray chest PA view. I can see the ribs, the heart, the diaphragm, the clavicle, and I cannot see any appreciable pathology in the lung fields or in the cardiac shadow. But just below the diaphragm on the right, I can see there is some radiolucency above the shadow for the liver. So there is a chink of air or free gas. So I think this is a case of hollow viscera perforation. একটু সময় নিয়ে বলো, describe the X-ray first. Or at times examiners might say just tell me the diagnosis, তো বলার দরকার নেই. Then you say what you have said. But give yourself some time and give the examiner some time as well. Okay? So pathology, already you know, it's a hollow viscera perforation. You can see free gas under the right hemidiaphragm. Again, free gas under the...
স্যার প্রিভিয়াস এক্সরে তে লেফটে কি ছিল স্যার, মানে লেফটের দিকে ডায়াফ্রামের নিচে?
আসছি আমি এটা তো তোমায় দেখাইনি, ছবিটা ভালো নয় বলে। তুমি যেটা বলছো একদম ঠিক বলছো, আমি জানি তুমি কি ভাবছো, আমি আসছি। Same kind of feature you are having over here. Okay, free gas under diaphragm. Now, in small amount of the air leak বা gas leak হয়, generally it comes below the right hemidiaphragm. But if large amount of free gas comes out, you can get it below the left hemidiaphragm also. That is, probably this is the fundus and this is the diaphragm. There is free gas in this zone as well. So what you have just asked, so there may be free gas over this region also. This is the margin of the stomach. Okay, so there is free gas under the left hemidiaphragm as well. So more amount of gas, there can be free gas under the left hemidiaphragm as well. You can see it much better here. This is the gas under the right hemidiaphragm. You can see the margin of the stomach and you can see there is free gas. And what this level is, anybody? Why the straight line is here? Hello?
Food in stomach.
Yes, it is, of course, this is stomach. See, this is the margin of the stomach. Okay, stomach is going like this. There is free gas under the left hemidiaphragm as well. But why the straight line is there like that?
So the air fluid level in the stomach.
That is the level of food or what? No, not exactly that. Theoretically possible, but what really is, this is the stomach. Now a patient comes after peptic perforation. Now you know what happens. The stages of peritonitis are there. So when there is severe peritonitis, the movements of intestine is hampered. There is paralytic ileus. So whatever content is there within the stomach, be it fluid, be it food, be it gastric secretions, all are stagnant. So that will again give you a horizontal line like this in the stomach itself, like you got in a case of hydrothorax. So this is probably due to an old case of peptic perforation where it is there is free fluid, there is a fluid level within the stomach because of paralytic ileus, which is also a feature of peritonitis. Okay, so in some x-rays you can get this kind of pictures, but also remember 30% of peptic perforations do not show free gas under diaphragm. So if you don't get a free gas under diaphragm, don't just rule out peptic perforation. It can be one. There are other ways of determining it, but please remember this thing. This is something different. Okay. This is not exactly undergrad stuff anyway. This is, we all were taught in our postgrad days. In some plates you can see this is the liver shadow, this is the diaphragm. You can get some kind of gas like features over here, and it is nothing but the transverse colon going up and interposed between the diaphragm and liver. Now transverse colon contains gas mostly, of course stool and gas. So this gas may actually look like a free gas under diaphragm, which is known as Chilaiditi sign. Please don't confuse it with free gas under diaphragm. This picture, whatever you are seeing, see the free gas under diaphragm was homogeneous blackness. This is not exactly a homogeneous blackness. Okay, here. So that is a kind of crude way of determining whether it's a Chilaiditi sign, that is a colonic interposition is there or not, or it's a free gas under diaphragm, as we see in a case of hollow visceral perforation. Now before going into this, if I ask you, if you are asked a question in the exam that you are suspecting as a patient to be a case of peptic perforation in the emergency, you are allowed to do one X-ray because there are very less amount of X-rays in the emergency. What X-ray are going to advise?
So chest X-ray, PA view.
Exactly, that should be the answer. It should be a chest X-ray PA view only, including both domes of diaphragm. Okay, that should be the answer, a chest X-ray PA view including both domes of diaphragm, so that you can see if something is there below the diaphragm or not. But in actual practice, what we do or what you have seen us doing, that is, we ask for a straight X-ray abdomen in erect posture, including both domes of diaphragm. That is also done. But if you are asked to do one X-ray only, it's a chest X-ray PA view only. That is the answer. And if the patient cannot stand erect, then what we will do? Patient is too
So lateral decubitus.
Sir,
What
left lateral decubitus.
Say complete. Left lateral decubitus.
Left lateral.
Okay, so let's go on to the next X-ray. Now, this is obviously abdomen I can make out. The pelvis bones are there. What is this? What do you think it is to be? Any idea? Okay, you can. What you are seeing?
Multiple air fluid level.
So you can see a X-ray of abdomen. You can see multiple air fluid levels. I believe all know what is multiple air fluid level. 1, 2, 3 at least I can see here, and of course distended bowel loops as well. Okay, so distended bowel loops, multiple air fluid level. Probably you are dealing with a case of intestinal obstruction. Okay. Now the question is, can there be multiple air fluid level in a normal patient? Yes, there are a few. Where? One, stomach. As this is the fundus, there is always some amount of gas in the fundus. Always in a straight or upright decubitus you can get it. And in small bowels also 2-3 small air fluid levels are normally acceptable. Okay. Generally in large bowel there are none. So if you are asked how many normal air fluid levels are acceptable for an individual, sir, up to 2 or 3. One, consistently at the gastric fundus. Secondly, it can be in the small bowel. 2 or 3 maximum, usually none in the large bowel. If you get more than that, you are suspecting it's a case of intestinal obstruction. These are the normal air fluid levels you can see. Okay. But this is definitely pathological. So many air fluid levels. So this is so many air fluid levels. Why? This is bowel obstruction. Don't jump into the conclusion it's a small bowel or large bowel. We'll come to that. Why small, why large, we'll come into that. First question, it's a dynamic obstruction or adynamic obstruction. Second, it's a large or small bowel. Now I believe you know something about the dynamic or adynamic obstruction. As I told in the peptic perforation X-ray, there can be intestinal paresis, aperistaltic gut, because of sepsis, because of peritonitis, because of hypokalemia. There is no movement of the intestines. So there you will get adynamic obstruction. But a dynamic obstruction is usually mechanical, be it a intestinal knotting, be it of some kind of obstructing lesion within the lumen, whatever. That is a dynamic obstruction, a mechanical one. So, can you say from an X-ray it's a dynamic or adynamic? No, sir, I cannot say. From an X-ray, no. So, dynamic or adynamic, you cannot say. But large and small, I believe one can. Let's try. Now it's a peculiar X-ray. You can see multiple dilated loops in this particular X-ray. Yes or no?
Yes,
Hello?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But can you see any air fluid level? Then what happened
No,
here?
sir.
Then what happened here?
Enteroclysis.
That is a different thing. That's the procedure. Come on. It's a multiple air fluid level, but no, multiple dilated gut loops, but no air fluid level. Suppose you take a patient.
Intestinalis.
Pardon?
The pneumatosis intestinalis.
No. You're going into a difficult. I always told you, I have blocked something over here. Okay. I always told you, think of the common things first. A plate is taken in supine posture. Okay. Supine posture. Patient was too sick to stand. In a supine posture, you will get only dilated.
Toxic megacolon.
Come on, let me answer first. It's a patient X-ray taken in a supine posture. You cannot get air fluid levels, only dilated bowel loops. In a case of, again, in intestinal obstruction. It is an intestinal obstruction, but it's a supine field, not an erect field. The air fluid levels or whatever you are seeing is these all are erect fields. Got my point?
So how we will understand it is in supine or erect?
You are not supposed to understand. I am just giving you an example. I told you at the start of the discussion that in supine films, air fluid levels are not usually seen. I told you, remember, this is an example of an intestinal obstruction. Somebody has taken a film in a supine posture and there is no air fluid level but multiple dilated bowel loops. If you take a wrong X-ray or if you are bound to take an X-ray in a different posture, what kind of diagnostic dilemmas comes? Just remember that supine X-rays also come in the emergencies. Okay, it is not for your exam, just to show you the difference between the two. Now coming to the fact of small bowel obstruction. In small bowel obstruction or large bowel obstruction, there are various differences. Look at the pattern. Here you can see some flowery patterns, some fine streaky lines going from one part of the intestine to the other part, one to another part, one to another part. And in this plate, you can see dilated bowel loops, but actually just dilated loops with no special character. These are typical features of small bowel obstruction. So this thing, what we have seen in this plate, this is known as valvuli conniventis. Valvuli conniventis is a feature of mostly second part of intestine, that is the jejunum. Okay, so in jejunal obstructions, the valvuli conniventis become, the mucosal folds, they become prominent. The classical picture we have seen there. So if you see the prominent valvuli conniventis in the dilated bowel loops, probably you are dealing with a case of jejunal obstruction. Okay, so in small bowel obstructions, the dilated bowel loops are generally placed more centrally, first of all. Whereas in large bowel obstructions, the dilated bowel loops are more peripheral. Okay, valvuli conniventis, the typical things here, or shall we get back to that original picture? I'm getting that there. The valvuli conniventis is a typical feature of small bowel obstruction, particularly jejunal obstructions. Jejunum has got this peculiar character dilated jejunums, you can show the small mucosal folds. More centrally placed, this is small bowel obstruction. Now what is this? These are just dilated tubes out here. The dilated tubes means this is ileum. Typically or euphemistically called, these are charactal, no special character. Again, more centrally placed. The lateral things are still blurred. So these are small bowel obstructions, either jejunal or ileal. More centrally placed. As I told, just huge tubeless things, ileum, more centrally placed, and peripherally placed things are large bowel obstructions. And the diameter is more in a case of large bowel obstructions than small bowel obstructions. Small bowel diameters are usually less than 3 centimeters. Anybody want to say anything?
So why means due to obstruction jejunum we are able to see valvuli conniventi?
Why we are able to see valvuli conniventi? See, valvuli conniventi is there in all jejunums, be it diseased jejunum or non-diseased jejunum. Only when the jejunum is dilated, I mean free of fluids, full of gas and dilated, the valvuli conniventi become prominent on X-rays. The valvuli conniventi is always there. It's there with you, it's there with me as well. But it becomes prominent when the X-rays are taken on dilated jejunum loops. Now, common sense, when the jejunum is dilated, the ileum is not dilated. We cannot see the simple tube-like dilatation of ileum. The obstruction must be there at the end of jejunum before the ileum. Common sense. So, valvuli conniventi is classically seen in dilated jejunum, generally either in the jejunum or at the end of jejunum if there is any obstruction. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Now this is a picture of large bowel obstruction, hugely dilated bowel loops. The large bowel obstruction, the dilated bowel loops, you can see laterally they are, and small bowel gas amount is much less if the ileocecal valve is competent, because ileocecal valve is made to transmit whatever from ileum to cecum. If it is competent, it won't allow the gas to come back from cecum to ileum. So if it is competent, large gut will be dilated, small gut will not be dilated in that way. These are pictures of large bowel dilatation. These all are large bowel features, and you can see food residues or fecal residues within the bowel loops. And this is a picture of, as I was discussing, it's a sigmoid volvulus. So how a sigmoid volvulus takes the shape? Now sigmoid volvulus happens over the sigmoid colon. You know the sigmoid colon, if this is the human body, sigmoid colon is somewhere out here. This is the sigmoid and ultimately continues as rectum. Now if because of whatever reason the sigmoid volvulus is dilated hugely, you will see this kind of a picture, a hugely dilated bowel loop. Intervening part is this, extremely sorry. Intervening part is this, and this is the junction of one loop and another loop. This is one loop turning upon itself is another loop. This is looking like the omega sign in mathematics or Greek letters, or also known as coffee bean sign. This is the coffee bean. Okay. This is not for Excel. Now, in large bowel obstruction, I told you about valvuli conniventis in small bowel. But in large bowel also, there are something which is very classically visible, though we understand large bowel of larger diameter, more peripherally placed. But this thing, these are all nothing but the haustration. The haustrations also become prominent when the large bowel become dilated. In dilated large bowels, the haustrations also become prominent. This is again a picture of a volvulus. This is the intervening part, and this is the hugely dilated sigmoid colon. Now, in a obstruction, I just one thing to remember. If you get an intestinal obstruction, please don't forget to look for free gas under diaphragm is there or not. Because you see, as I discussed in the peptic perforation, if there is free gas under, on the left side of the hemidiaphragm, and there was intestinal paresis, and you can see fluid level within the stomach. Similarly, the same kind of intestinal obstruction-like features, adynamic obstruction because of peritonitis, can actually happen in small bowels, and you are thinking it's a case of small bowel obstruction, whereas you are missing the free gas under diaphragm. Conversely, a long-standing acute intestinal obstruction, gangrenous gut, perforating, there can be also free gas under diaphragm. So in a intestinal obstruction, please look for free gas under diaphragm every time. This is a picture of anybody? Is there anybody?
This lens diagram is
একদম বোঝা যায় পারফেক্ট অ্যান্সার কোন জায়গা বোঝা যাচ্ছে না তো আমরা বোঝার চেষ্টা করি সি আই ক্যান সি দ্য ভার্টিব্রি ওকে অ্যান্ড আই ক্যান সি দ্য রিবস ভার্টিব্রা রিব দেখতে পাচ্ছি প্রবাবলি ইটস আ ল্যাটারাল ফিল্ম or oblique film, probably. I would just দেখানোর জন্য দেখাচ্ছি. So something on the vertebrae and ribs, and somebody didn't even mention the left, right, whatever also in this film. But what I can see is there is a bag-like thing with white opaque things inside. Now you think of vertebra and ribs, any such thing which is a small bag-like thing which can be white like this. Any structure in the upper part of abdomen? Can you remember?
Gallbladder.
Yes,
Liver.
that liver cannot be so small. That's a case of gallbladder. That's a porcelain gallbladder. Okay. You heard the term? নাম শুনেছো? Porcelain gallbladder. There is small calcifications within the gallbladder wall. It's a pre-malignant condition. Rarely gallbladder can be visible in X-rays. But if you are given a plate like this, you are in trouble. What stone is this? You can see a pelvic bone, you can see the vertebrae, you can see some radio opaque rounded stuff on the right side, and from this plate only. So let a key. What extra investigation I can suggest on this? So I am still confused. বলো
এক্স-রে ল্যাটারাল ভিউটা নিয়ে দেখতে হবে স্পাইনটাকে ওভারল্যাপ করছে
ভেরি গুড তো আমার থেকে ভালো এক্স তুই পড়িয়ে দিতে পারতিস বাবা anyway you have told it correctly. First of all, you have to know if you get radio opaque things in the abdomen, what are the possibilities? One, renal stones. এই ছবিটা দেখেই তোমায় দেখাচ্ছিলাম যেরকম there can be 12 rib calcification as a phlebolith within the veins, fecalith within the appendix, calcified lymph node, renal cells here the calcification hote pare, and there can be a calcified adrenal tumor. So many things can be there in X-ray which are radio opaque shadows in X-ray. But in that particular X-ray, if how to differentiate a gallstone and a renal stone? First of all, gallstones are generally radiolucent. Only 10% are radio opaque, whereas renal stones are 90% radio opaque. So chances are more that thing to become a renal stone is more. Still, I need an X-ray where I have to get a lateral film. If it's a gallstone will be in front of the vertebrae. A renal stone behind the vertebrae. Kidney is a retroperitoneal structure. Okay. So somebody just told me the correct answer. If you are given this kind of radio opaque things, if don't get confused, it can be number of things like, as I told, calcified nodes, renal stones, calcified fecalith, phlebolith, etc. But it also can be a Gallbladder stone, if it is on the right side, I will ask for a lateral film, gallstone forward, kidney stone behind. Okay. I will give the history. Anybody?
Sir, chronic pancreatitis.
So, why the X-ray is looking like this?
Sir, lumen is calcified.
Bolo, bolo, bolo.
Calcific
Bolo.
pancreatitis.
I will accept
Chronic
that.
pancreatitis.
Chronic?
Calcific pancreatitis.
Chronic
Was it
calcific pancreatitis?
pancreatitis? Something like that.
Chronic, okay. That got the right answer. Chronic calcifying pancreatitis or multiple pancreatic duct calculi. Okay, আমি তো history দিয়ে দিয়েছি. Alcoholic, diabetic, recent onset, that means pancreatic exocrine function is gone. It's a chronic pancreatitis. You will get this kind of radio opaque shadows crossing right to left, a bit upward direction in front of the vertebrae. That is calcific pancreatitis or pancreatic calculi, pancreatic duct calculi. Okay. Anybody? This is a nasogastric tube. Okay. I mean Rice tube. It's a kid, small kid.
Congenital deformity.
It's a congenital diaphragmatic hernia.
তো ভালো শুনতে আমার থেকে ভালো বলি যে আমি পারতাম তোদের বয়সে এগুলো বলতে It's a congenital diaphragmatic hernia. You can see the fundic shadow. This is the stomach fundus within the thoracic cavity. Stomach has gone up, so the Rice tube inserted has gone within the thorax. Okay, it's a case of congenital diaphragmatic hernia. This is another atypical X-ray. Multiple calcifying nodes in a patient of tuberculosis. Rarely visible, rarely power jai, but still, as I have one, I am just showing you one. Again, please remember the radio opaque shadows in abdomen. It is often asked. The calcifying nodes, fecolis, flebolis, all that the list. Please remember. It about that is not for you. Now let's come for the contrast X-rays. Contrast X-rays means we give contrasts orally or intravenous. Now obviously for GI tract, বুঝতেই পারছো, we need oral contrast first. So in GI tract, whatever contrast we give, either it's a barium meal or it's a barium swallow or it's a barium follow through. Barium meal, the name suggests it will opacify upper GI tract. The barium swallow, it follows upper and mid GI tract, and barium follow through even colon and rectum as well. The oral contrast is barium sulfate or gastrographin. Now, whenever you are doing contrast X-rays, there must be time, because X-ray taken at 5 minutes after giving a dye and X-ray taken after 6 hours after dye cannot be the same. So if the time is not mentioned in a barium meal or barium swallow or barium follow through, answers can be given in a wrong way. So always look for, if you are given any contrast X-ray anytime, look for size, number one, and number two, look for any time is mentioned or not. And few minutes back somebody was talking about enteroclysis. That's a small bowel enema. That's a separate entity. I have given the dye orally and something is visible in the neck at the clavicle level. Anybody?
Zenker, sir.
Zenker's diverticulum, very good. This is dilated esophagus. I couldn't get into the stomach. And the dye is pulling up within the esophagus without can't get a chance of getting into the stomach.
Achalasia cardia.
Achalasia cardia. This is the barred beak deformity, typical. Okay, from esophagus, dye cannot get into the stomach. The barred beak deformity, that is achalasia cardia. Now in sorry, this plate, I have just minimized the picture. This is esophagus, and this is esophagus going. What is happening here?
Apple code
deformity.
Pardon?
This is a filling defect.
This is a filling defect. Very good. What is it?
Apple
Malignancy.
It is the mid esophageal malignancy. Okay. Now we are getting into the stomach proper. Whenever you think of the normal X-rays first, fundus, as we know, on the left, dye is given into the fundus. It is the body and the pylorus, and dye ultimately goes into the small intestine and the jejunum. That is the normal X-rays what we see in a barium meal study. Let's go for the different terminologies. Here you can see the fundus, the gastric jugi, the lesser curvature, greater curvature, duodenum. Some important entities are mentioned every time. The dye is well within the stomach, and there you can see a trifoliate thing at the end of the stomach, which is known as duodenal cap. Now duodenal cap is this triangular thing is a feature of normal duodenum first part when you are doing a barium meal study. Now in a case of chronic duodenal ulcer, this triangular beautiful thing is destroyed. It becomes distorted. So distorted duodenal cap is a feature of peptic ulcer disease, or more specifically chronic duodenal ulcer. Please don't make the mistake like number of times in endoscopy we see they put a scope inside and see and write report that duodenum cap is deformed. No sir, endoscopist cannot say from inside the duodenal cap is deformed or not. They can say the scarring is there. But duodenum cap is an exclusively radiological feature, the triangular thing which is found in normal individuals, and it is distorted in the case of chronic duodenal ulcer. Now in these plates you see there are some irregularities here. What is this? Can you tell me? Can you say what is this? Is there a filling defect? In the esophagus it was a filling defect. Is it so?
Waves of peristalsis.
It is the first, your answer should be, sir, seeing in one plate, sir, I cannot comment. If the same filling defect persists in a number of plates, then sir, I think it's a filling defect because of any space occupying problem, a lesion. Maybe a gastric malignancy. But if in one film it is here, another film it is here, another film it is here, it is probably because of peristalsis. A single plate cannot give you a clear answer. Okay?
স্যার পাইলোরিক স্টেনোসিসের সঙ্গে কি করে ডিফারেন্সিয়েট করব?
পাইলোরিক স্টেনোসিসের সঙ্গে তুমি পাইলোরিক স্টেনোসিস আসছি দাঁড়াও। This is a mucosal irregularity within the stomach, যেটা আমরা ফিলিং ডিফেক্ট দেখছিলাম ওখানে in the last film. Now you can see a more close up of another film. It is a persistent filling defect over these zones. Only small amount of dye is allowed to pass. That is a case of gastric carcinoma. Okay. Somebody told, sorry. This is a filling defect. Now if you are shown this plate again, what is this? এটা কি peristalsis মনে হচ্ছে? Sir, it can be peristalsis. I don't know, but if I can get a few X-rays together, I could have commented much more comfortably. But looking at the irregular type nature of the filling defect, it seems that it is a filling defect because of any space occupying lesion in stomach. Most common is that is gastric carcinoma. Now somebody told me আমাকে পাইলোরিক অবস্ট্রাকশনের সঙ্গে আমি কি করে ডিফারেন্সিয়েট করব? Isn't it somebody just now asked? See, this is a plate. No time is mentioned. Still, I am more or less certain to get into a diagnosis. How? Let's come to that one after another. This is the stomach. in the stomach upper part you can see some moth-eaten appearance, some irregularity, some black and white, something nonsense over here. There is dye over here. That is, this area is colon. And this is the pelvic bone. And stomach, lower level of the stomach is at the level of pelvic bone. So you are getting a stomach which has elongated up to the pelvic bone, which has got full of moth-eaten appearance kind of stuff within it, and the stomach is full of dye even when the dye is gone up to the colon. Normal gastric emptying time is 2 hours. So what is your diagnosis?
Sir, dye has been applied from the upper end as well as the lower end.
Upper end, lower end কি রে? আমি তো বেরিয়াম নীল বলে যাচ্ছি. I haven't gone into the lower end or aboral end.
So gastric outlet obstruction.
This is a case of gastric outlet obstruction or pyloric obstruction. Somebody was asking at that point of time. A chronically obstructed pylorus giving rise to a hugely distended stomach. Stomach has gone up to the pelvis. Normally, do we have stomach up to the pelvis? Do you think so?
No.
So, it's a hugely distended stomach. Yes or no? There is dye within the stomach still when the dye has gone up to the colon. So, gastric emptying is delayed. Yes or no? And thirdly, this moth-eaten appearance, this some kind of black and white stuff, this is undigested food particle within the stomach. So undigested food particle, hugely distended stomach, and stomach retaining dye even after the dye has reached the colon. It is nothing but gastric outlet obstruction because of whatever reason. Again, another feature of hugely distended stomach. See, this is the pelvic bone. Can you see the pelvic bone? Stomach has gone down like anything. This is the pylorus out here. Now, why the pylorus is obstructed?
Sir, how you are sure it is stomach? It could be also a transverse colon.
Interesting question. Why I am sure it is stomach and it is not transverse colon? First of all, I have given the dye orally. Okay. So the first thing that will be visualized to me is esophagus, then stomach, then jejunum, then ileum, and etc. I am not getting picture anywhere within of the what I say in small bowel. I am getting dyes within the upper part of the small, I mean GI tract, that is within the stomach first. So how can a dye from stomach gets into the colon bypassing the jejunum and ileum? I don't know the answer. Second thing, the undigested food particles out here, that is typical of stomach. In colon it is different, I will show you. And third, we are yet to discuss the colonic pictures, how it looks like in a contrast study. Okay? Colon doesn't look like this.
The pelvic bone.
Pardon?
So the pelvic bone. Can you please show it?
Yes, here is the pelvic bone. Number of pictures are actually truncated. This is the pelvic bone. Okay. These are the vertebrae. The pelvic bone is here. The ileum is here. Okay, on the left side, right side. I can show you the left side. Left side is obscure. Now, if the stomach is distended like this, if there is pyloric obstruction, you are asked from your examiner what is the cause. Can you answer? Anybody?
The hypertrophic pylori stenosis.
Who told that? Hypertrophic pylori stenosis? This is an adult. Hypertrophic pylori stenosis is a pediatric disease, number one. Number two, the pyloric obstruction in adults, the two most commonest causes we encounter are, first, gastric carcinoma, and that is chronic duodenal ulcer leading to pyloric stenosis. So these two are the commonest cause, either malignancy or pyloric stenosis because of chronic duodenal ulcer. Now, from a barium study, I cannot really comment whether it is a malignancy or a pyloric stenosis. To rule out that, I need to do a upper GI endoscopy. From the barium, I can identify the problem is where, but I cannot exactly identify the cause of the problem in this particular point. Okay. This is a
মাস্কারার ফিলিং ডিফেক্টটা কি ছিল?
This filling defect, this thing or this thing?
হ্যাঁ
This one, I presume.
স্যার
Okay.
মাস্কার হ্যাঁ
This is peristaltic movement এর জন্য notches. Again, from one plate, very difficult to comment. But this kind of a smooth notch, like a polyp, the smooth notch is unlikely in a case of malignancy. It is irregular. This is, stomach is having its own peristalsis. Stomach is trying to expel out whatever is there inside, but it cannot. So peristaltic movement is on. Okay. This notch is because of gastric peristalsis, not because of malignancy. If you have a different X-ray of this particular patient, probably will get it over here or here. Enteroclasis just showing a picture how it looks like. Somebody at that point of time in a supine X-ray intestinal obstruction told it is enteroclasis. Almost looks like the same, I agree, but there is a tube in enteroclasis because you have to send the dye to the small bowel. In a small intestinal obstruction, you don't get a tube like this. Okay? Now, I was asked why it was not a colon. Now, lower GI tract, there the colonic studies can be of two types, the antegrade or retrograde. The antegrade are the barium nil and follow through. And retrogrades are the barium enemas. And special cases, of course, when we have intestinal stomas made, I mean holes made into the small or large bowel, we do it through those things also. Double contrast study. Double contrast studies are nothing but the barium enemas. We give an enema and then we insufflate the colon with air so that some amount of barium comes out. A thin coating of barium sulfate remains over the mucosa to give you a better idea of the mucosal irregularities. And of course, barium studies, particularly lower GI studies, a scout film, that is a non-contrast simple X-ray. AP view is taken first, then the dyes are given. So dyes take 6 to 8 hours to reach colon. This is stomach. This is angular notch. That is because of peristaltic. Here the peristaltic movements are there. Pylorus, duodenum, small bowel, and ultimately it's going jejunum and ultimately going into the large bowel. It takes 6 to 8 hours. So basically we do when we find there is some kind of partial obstruction, not complete obstructions, or abdominal masses, Crohn's, ulcers, obstructions, patient is having hematemesis, diarrhea, distension. In those situations, we do barium nil follow-throughs. And dyes are given. This is the stomach. Dye has gone into this is the jejunum, fluffy opacities. The valvuli conniventris thing, you remember, the fluffy opacities are the jejunum, please remember. And then dye has gone through the ileum into the ascending colon. Ascending colon going up, hepatic flexor. This is the transverse colon and it goes like this. So from this picture, can you see the haustration are very clearly marked. Does your stomach look like this? Stomach is up, the haustration and transverse colon is down. Do this look similar? The man who, somebody asked me why this is not colon. Does this look similar?
No, sir.
So I believe we are not going to confuse between a transverse colon and stomach in barium films later on. This is a normal.
So you told that dye will be present in stomach and it will take time to reach to colon. So by that time gastric contrast should get emptied, but it is still present in this image.
Some amount of dye, see, not the huge amount of dye. In medical science, things cannot be whole or non-law like mathematics. Come on. There is some amount of dye. Almost these things have blackened up already. There is some amount of dye, a small coating of dye may remain. But the small 6 to 8 hours, large bowel is grossly visualized. Generally, major amount of dye goes out from the stomach. It cannot be absolutely clean. You open up a stomach after 6 hours, you will get a coating of barium inside. So this is a picture, bread and butter for the surgeon. This is a transverse colon, and you can see this is the appendix, and these are the appendicolates, the fecolates within the appendix, which is the hallmark of diseased appendix. Very important thing in barium studies in colon is the apple core lesion. What is an apple core lesion? You give the barium, you get a filling defect into within the large bowel, and it is named like a apple core lesion. This is an apple when you eat it from the all side, and this is the picture of apple core within the bowel loop. I will show in a better plate. See. This is the transverse colon going like this. This was the proximal colon, ascending colon and all. It is a barium enema actually. This is the transverse colon, and here you can see from this side, there is a filling, mass effect on there. So centrally small amount of dye could have passed. So this is known as the apple core lesion in a case of colon, which is classically found in carcinoma colon. This is another example of apple core lesion within the colon. This is small bowel, the large bowel going like this large bowel going descending, sigmoid, and this is the rectum. You can see the classical apple core lesion which is found in an adenocarcinoma of the colon. So if you are given a barium meal follow through, or even a barium enema, where you can see this kind of a filling defect within the colon, like a half-eaten apple, central part remaining intact, sides you have eaten, this is nothing but adenocarcinoma of colon.
So can we comment through radiology it is adenocarcinoma or what?
Most probably apple core lesions are actually pathognomonic of carcinoma colon. There are other pathologies in colon definitely which actually do not give this kind of pictures. There are a few pictures I will show, different kind of things. Apple core lesions are classical in case of carcinoma colon. This is a ileocecal tuberculosis, not generally given in undergrad exams, but you can see small bowel, opacified, dyes have mostly gone. This is cecum going like the cecum, this is ileum going down, ileocecal junction. Cecum is pulled up and the fibrosed and narrowed ileocecal junction, and the angle between cecum and ileum is become a wide one. So distorted appendix, pulled up cecum, widening of the angle between the ileum and cecum is known as ileocecal tuberculosis. I'm driving. There's a phone call for me, just a sec. Sorry for the disturbance. শুনতে পাচ্ছো? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So ileocecal tuberculosis still very much prevalent in our country. If you get a barium film like this is not exactly a apple core lesion, this is the ileocecal junction. The cecum pulled up, widening of the angle, and this is the appendix which is distorted. Now somebody was asking, sir, আমরা কি কোলনে শুধু অ্যাপেল করি বলবো আর কিছু বলবো না? So what is this? This is colon with loss of horstrations. Horstrations with কিছু. That is 5 stem colon.
Charles.
Found
Sir, ulcerative colitis.
very good.
Ulcerative colitis.
Ulcerative colitis. When we were students, one of our teacher had this particular X-ray with her, and she used to give this X-ray in exams, and we knew that it is a 5-stem colon, it's ulcerative colitis. But what we always used to miss, it is not there in this picture. This is the spine. In ulcerative colitis, in that particular picture, not in this plate, the patient had a bamboo spine. Okay. So she always used to scold us, ki তোমরা ব্যাম্বু স্পাইনটা দেখতে পাচ্ছ না, শুধু আলসারেটিভ কোলাইটিস দেখলেই হবে। So if you are actually ever asked this kind of a plate, look at the spine as well. Now barium enema. Logic is very simple. You give the dye.
আগের স্যার
বলো
স্যার আগের স্লাইডটায় ওটা তো স্যার মানে লেট পাইপ অ্যাপিয়ারেন্সটা মিউকোসাল গ্র্যানুলারিটি শো করছে। সো এটা কি লেট পাইপ মানে তো কোনো ক্যারেক্টারিস্টিকই থাকবে না।
না, এটা তো because of the dye. See, the pipe has got no characteristic. Pipe has got no characteristic. The mucosal problems are there in this patient. The ulcerative colitis থাকে এবং কোন স্টেজে নেওয়া হচ্ছে তো আমিও জানি না ছবিটা। Okay, but the horstrations are gone of colon. This is colon, typically going like this, but the horstrations is not there. You wanted to have a look like this, isn't it? This kind of homogeneous kind of opacity could have pleased you more. তাহলে খুশি হতো তুমি। I understand. But there are mucosal irregularity তো থাকে। There are mucosal ulcerations তো থাকে in ulcerative colitis.
Yes.
Barium enema, logic is very simple. You put the dye per annum, dye will go up to the cecum. In a competent ileocecal valve, it cannot cross. Isn't it? আর তো কিছু নেই। Again, barium enema, of course, when you are dealing with malignancies, particularly in the lower GI tract, change in bowel habit, melena, change in shape of the stool, for previous history of bowel malignancies, unexplained weight loss and all these things, you need to do a barium enema. See, you have given the dye per annum, so the dye has gone like this. Here the dye has passed into the terminal ileum. That means the ileocecal valve is incompetent. Okay? And this is a double contrast. That is, the dye is given and then air is given. So there is a thin film of dye adhered to the mucosa, which will give you a better idea about mucosal irregularities. That is a double contrast barium enema. It's a double contrast barium enema. It will give you a better idea about the strictures actually. There are few mucosal lesions out here, the strictures, just how to do it dekhe rakho. So if you get plates where you can get to see the colon and rectum and anal canal better visualized, dye is not going into the small bowel, think whether you are given a barium enema plate or not. And barium enemas are exclusively done to rule out malignancies particularly. And of course strictures, which are again malignancy or rarely in this Crohn's and ulcerative colitis as well. T-tube cholangiogram, a very simple thing to obey. For your understanding, please understand, we operate on gallbladder, remove the gallbladder. We know there may be stones in the CVD. CVD stones, better way to take it out is via ERCP. If you don't have an ERCP facility or you are going for an open surgery, you remove the stone from common bile duct via incision, remove the stone, then put a tube inside the common bile duct, that is known as a T-tube. So looks like a T. And then stitch the rest part of the common bile duct. So whatever bile will come from the right and the left duct, they will come via the T-tube, come out. That is known as T-tube. So look at this picture. that this is the T tube going in. One limb, another limb, third limb. Here is actually that it has folded up on itself. 1, 2, 3. Third limb going out. And this is the T tube done to drain the bile from the repaired common bile duct so that no stress appears on the common bile duct or the newly stitched areas of the common bile duct. But the problem is it only sufficient to know this? No, sir. After few days, you are not really very sure whether you have removed all the stones from the common bile duct or not. So in that case, you need to do a T-tube cholangiogram. Logic is simple. The tube is out here. You put a dye from here. So dye will go via this and this, go up on both sides and go down. So I have pushed a dye. This is the syringe. Dye is going in. Both limbs up, intrahepatic biliary radicals are visualized, and dye has gone down, and I can see dye has gone up to the jejunum. This fluffy opacity is jejunum. So that means first, there is no leak. That means my repair is perfect. Second, dye is going freely into the jejunum. That means I have not left any stone into the common bile duct system. And intra and extrahepatic biliary radicals are not dilated either. I am happy. I haven't done any surgical misadventure. So T-tube cholangiogram is done on which day? So it is done after CBD exploration. It is done on usually on 10th or 12th day after surgery. Please remember the day. It is asked in the exam to visualize the biliary passage and identify residual and retained stone. So this is a T-tube cholangiogram. T-tube, dye is going up, dye is going this way. This is right side, and dye is freely flowing into the duodenum. That is, you are happy that there is no obstruction. I haven't left any stone inside. Look for any filling defect or flow of dye. That is the two things. So how a filling defect will look like? Now look at this picture. This is a filling defect. This is the T-tube. Dye I have pushed. See, the extrahepatic biliary radicals are dilated. Already there is dilatation of the common bile duct. I have left a stone over here. Again, dye is pushed from here. The radicals are dilated, and again the crescent shaped upper margin. I have left a stone over here. Dye cannot pass. Here small amount of dye can pass. The dye cannot pass. So that is the way of identifying any retained or residual stone in the common bile duct. Now, can it only be stone? The black thing? Anybody?
Sir, mass in case of a CBD carcinoma.
So you are talking about any cholangiocarcinoma. See, you can see a very small rounded opacity inside, isn't it? Does it look like a carcinoma? I have done a CBD exploration only 10 days back, isn't it? I am not supposed to miss a carcinoma over there. A carcinoma in CBD will present with jaundice and all these things. So carcinoma it is not. It's a rounded black opacity. I am asking a simple question. Air bubble hote pare?
The air bubble will float.
Air bubble will float. That is the right answer. So if it's an air bubble passing through the T-tube inside CBD, from this plate I cannot say. But if I make the patient erect and do it again, this will go up. Yes or no? This opacity will go up. This will go up. So in a supine position, okay, from this plate very difficult to say is air bubble or stone. But if I make the patient stand erect, I can say no, sir. It is air bubble, it is not a stone. Thank you. It is not. Now, as I told, T-tube cholangiogram we do after open exploration of CBDs. But nowadays, the CBD stones are handled endoscopically. That is ERCP. You know what is ERCP? endoscope is introduced up to the second part of duodenum. From the endoscope, another scope goes inside the common bile duct and takes out stone or whatever inside. So ERCP, it is also the tube goes, second scope, that's baby scope, goes inside the CVD. You can also visualize the CVD, and also you can do therapeutic procedures like taking out the stone. So it is used both for diagnostic as well therapeutic purpose. So whenever you get an X-ray, something like this kind of curved thing coming from top, this is nothing but an ERCP. This is the endoscope. Through here I have pushed the dye inside the CVD, and you can see the CVD is visualized. And what is there inside the CVD?
Filling defect.
Number of filling defects, not only filling defects. CVD is dilated. Pardon? Bolo? So if you get this kind of a thing from an X-ray plate, don't get confused. It is an ERCP. Look for this zone, what the examiner is willing to show you, whether multiple filling defects or single filling defect is there within the CVD or not. Okay. These are all our ERCP pictures. All this kind of radio opaque. Bolo. Yes. Very pertinent question. First of all, ERCP te you can visualize up to the second part of duodenum. That is known as a side viewing scope. Okay, you can see at the sides. At the second part of duodenum, you can see the ampulla, and then you push that we call a mother baby scope, the baby scope. From the scope, another scope goes in. Now this scope, they do not have an eye. They do not have a camera system. Corodoscope এখন বেরিয়ে গেছে. Generally, the ERCP থেকে যে scope বেরিয়ে যেটা CVD তে ঢোকে, that do not have a scope. They have only capabilities of pushing a dye to visualize by contrast and do some therapeutic procedures. But whatever you are asking, what you are saying, you are talking about, ওটাতে ক্যামেরা থাকে না, but newer age choledocoscopes are there. Choledocoscopy করলে you can see within the CVD as well. Okay, like you do a cystoscopy within the bladder, and from bladder you have put a ureteroscope that has got own camera system. You can see within the ureter up to the pelvis, but in ERCP they do not. And ERCP, as I told, you can do, this is a case, you can see the ERCP is done, dye is pushed, there is a stricture, maybe a malignant or non-malignant one, and they have pushed a stent inside to make the CVD patent again, to drain the bile. Okay. IVP, intravenous pyelogram. Another special kind of contrast X-rays, that is a dye is injected into any of the superficial veins. The dye is carried into the heart. From the heart via bloodstream goes into the kidney, excreted via kidneys, and that visualizes the renal pathway. Okay, so it is a method where you can have both the functional as well anatomical assessment of the renal pathways, intravenous pyelogram. And of course there are other ways of doing it. Intravenous, as I told, putting via veins. The retrograde urography is that is, you can do via urethra, push the dye up to the ureters. But retrograde, you cannot have good visualization of the kidneys, but you can have excellent visualization of the ureter and bladder systems. And there is another form of antegrade if the retrograde method fails. So it's important for upper tract, that is kidney, pelvis and upper ureter zone, it is a much more sensitive investigation. But definitely with the advent of CT, number of uses of IVP has gone down. Patient must be properly hydrated before doing it, and patient must have a normal renal profile. So in this plate I will go for the bigger plates. You can see the pelvic calyceal system on both sides, both the ureters coming down into the bladder. That is a normal picture in a IVP, intravenous pyelogram. Always do a scout film before going for IVP to compare with any abnormality if at all detected. These are the IVP pictures. See, number of pictures are there. On the left side, I can see IVP pictures are taken after minutes, whereas barium pictures are taken after hours. It is always IVP minutes are mentioned because blood going into the heart, coming into the kidney and excretion, everything happens within minutes. So it is after 3 minutes, after 5 minutes, after 2 hours, and post void, that is after the voiding of urine. Now you see in this particular plate, on the left side, the pelvic calyceal system is dilated. Both 3 minutes, 30 minutes, and this is 35 minutes, this is 2 hours, dye is well concentrated within the bladder and dye has gone out of the bladder, but this thing remains intact. That means there is some obstruction at the end of the pelvis, that is the pelvic-ureteric junction. So there is some pathology in the PUJ because of which the pelvic calyceal system is dilated and retaining dye even after voiding, even after hours. Okay. Another picture, the pelvic calyceal system dilated on one side, this side voided, this side still remaining. Cannot go down. Bladder is visible.
Sir?
Bolo.
Sir, I think is it a good way to find any obstruction using a dye or agent? For example, if there is already obstruction, we are using a dye, means more discomfort will occur to the patient. Sir.
First of all, you are talking about kidneys, okay? You are not talking about intestines. Whether you like or you do not like, the kidneys keep on making urine. The urine is formed every day. So if there is, even if there is obstruction, the dye given or not given, urine is coming from above and pushing above the obstruction. And if it cannot go down, there is hydroureter, hydropelvis, and there is enlargement of kidney known as what? Hydronephrosis. So urine is doing the damage already. By putting dye, you cannot do any extra damage. Number one. Number two, the dye we give either it's dye itself has got definite some contraindications like allergic reactions and other things. Keeping in mind, you are giving only say 5-10 cc dye. You are not giving liters of dye to put pressure upon the kidneys. What extra harm you can do with that? Already urine is giving the enough pressure. Hydronephrosis is being formed. In this particular film, you can see there is a stone on the right side, and there is the entire ureter is visible on the left. Is it a ureter not visible? Here, just now the question I was asked, this side there is dilated pelvic calyceal system up to this. Here the pelvic junction is blocked. It is dilated. The kidney is enlarged. Renal shadow is quite big up to this. This is renal shadow. So there is hydronephrosis on the right, and dye on the left side is going down. See the kidney level here, and here it is here. Dye is going down from the left side very easily. So on the right there is hydronephrosis. This kidney needs immediate intervention. You are putting 5-10 cc dyes or even 20 cc dye via vein. How much damage you are putting on this already obstructed ureter and pelvis? Do you actually? Rather to identify what else you can do. These are stones. These are just the names you must know. MRCP, it is nothing but MRI of hepatobiliary pancreatic region. Okay, to diagnose number of hepatobiliary pancreatic pathologies, particularly intraluminal. If there is stone within the pancreatic duct, stone within the common bile duct, this MRCP is a much sensitive investigation to get this done. I mean diagnosed. So when we find there is dilated common bile duct with no history of jaundice or hilar or papillary cholangiocarcinoma, somebody was asking me whether the filling defect is not malignancy or not, then MRCP is helpful. This is an MRCP picture. The pancreatic-biliary tree is visible, and these are the stones.
Sir, how is it possible that there is a dilated CBD and there is no jaundice?
Number of times it is possible. It always happens. Number of times. See, if the CBD is dilated, means there is obstruction. But if there is partial obstruction, CBD is dilated, the bile can pass through slowly and slowly. So there will be biochemical changes, like alkaline phosphatase will be raised, but there will not be clinical jaundice. Number of times it happened.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
These are MRCP pictures, stones out here. So MRCPs are not actually given, they are maybe asked. So when you have to do an MRCP, please note dilated CBD, no apparent jaundice, suspected cholangiocarcinoma, I would recommend the MRCP, sir. Okay, thank you. Any question from any aspect? আবার কনজিটাল ডায়াফ্রাম ঘাটি দিয়ে শুরু করাবি আমাকে বিনাশ করেছে আসছি দাঁড়া আমাকে খুঁজে বার করতে হবে
রাইস টুকটা অনেক দূরে চলে গেছে
এটা বলতে চাইছো ফার্স্ট অফ tracheoesophageal fistula কেন না tracheoesophageal fistula মানে you wanted to mean that the Ryle's tube has gone via the esophagus, okay, তাই তো Ryle's tube has gone via the esophagus and it has gone into the trachea, okay. In that case TOF would have happened over somewhere out here. Why it should go via the abdomen? সেটা দেখো তুমি যদি এখান থেকে ঢুকিয়ে দিলে you are putting a Ryle's tube over here, a pediatric Ryle's tube, and it is going into the airway from here. So it is probably a TOF, what you are talking. But here you look at the disposition of the Ryle's tube. It is going down and then again it is going as per the curvature of the stomach. Stomachকে খুঁজে খুঁজে Ryle's tube টা উঠছে. Okay? আর কিছু any more question from anything? See after
sir.
হ্যাঁ বলো
স্যার আপনি একটা বলেছে বেরিয়াম এনেমার ইন্ডিকেশন হচ্ছে আনএক্সপ্লেইনড ওয়েট লস
one of those, yes.
তো ওইটা কেন স্যার আনএক্সপ্লেইনড ওয়েট লসটা?
See, unexplained weight loss, unexplained anemia, bleeding per rectum without any apparent lesion in the anorectum, these all are hallmarks of colonic malignancy.
Malignancy.
So, to rule out colonic malignancy, you may need to do a barium enema. Though, in current days, colonoscopy has superseded this investigation. Okay?
Thank you.
Any more queries? Okay, then let's call it a day. Remember, hollow viscera perforation, pneumothorax, তারপর হচ্ছে pleural effusion, the flail chest, Toving chest, intestinal obstructions. These are the X-rays you people are going mostly to get. এগুলো commonly দেওয়া হয়েই থাকে. In exams, every alternate student will get that. Forget about the ERCPs and MRCPs, those are second line of investigations. I mean, second line of questions. So please don't make mistakes over the basic investigation and their answers. Okay? Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, sir.